Was told not to put my political beliefs on my resume. Is this political? I just failed a job interview yesterday. The guy seemed a bit hostile and basically took all my responses in the worst light. I've seen that before. He already picked who he wanted but was obligated to finish the rest of the interviews. Fine. Whatever. I've dealt with that before. But what gets me is that going over my resume. He gets to the point where I say that I am fully vaccinated against COVID-19. This is for a retail position, so I feel it's relevant. But he gets there and tells me, here's a tip. Don't announce your political leanings on your resume. No one with any sense will hire you if you announce it. Paraphrasing, I don't recall the exact wording. Again, it's a retail job. It seems to me like very relevant information. But just in case, should I remove that from my resume? Edit. Thanks for all the answers, y'all. I have removed the detail from my resume as the majority recommends. And I'm glad many understand why I had it on there in the first place. Got another interview at another place nearby shortly after I posted this, and that interview went much better. Closer place too. Still waiting on background check, but they basically hired me on the spot. Thanks for the advice, everyone. I would not call it political. But if they didn't ax, I wouldn't add it. The reason being is you ran into it, you got a guy that's doing the hiring that's anti-vax, and it hurt your chances at the job even though you weren't trying to be political. Never provide more information than they directly ask for. It's not political, but it's a weird thing to put on a resume. It's only political in the sense that extremists might get offended by it. But that said, you don't need to announce your vaccination status on your resume. If they care, they'll ask during the interview or afterward. You shouldn't be putting that on a resume anyways. Resumes should be about your skills and past experiences, not medical history or demographic information. I wouldn't call it political information to a normal person, but it's also not relevant. The guy may have thought you were making a political statement by putting that in your resume. It has nothing to do with qualifications, education, or experience. Well, that guy sounds like a jerk. But I've worked as a recruiter. I wouldn't list it, mainly because a resume is not a medical form. A resume should communicate and focus on your skills. Listing vaccinations is completely irrelevant to that aim and off topic. It does you no favors. If I saw that on a resume, I'd be questioning why the candidate decided to volunteer private health information in a job application. Look, these are the things that have no place on a resume. 1. Religious beliefs or lack thereof. 2. Political affiliation or beliefs. 3. Medical status or conditions. Every one of those things can get a hiring manager fired for even discussing them. They do not have a place on the resume. Your resume tells me how well you can fit a given position. Giving them more than that is asking for trouble. Nobody wants to hire a rabid anti-vaxxer who will whine and gripe when coworkers get a vaccination, any more than they want to hire someone who may end up insisting that coworkers being unmasked is dangerous. Take it off your resume. Only in this mad world is being a vaccinated considered political. No, this guy is a nutter. Your vaccination status has nothing to do with your ability to do a retail job. You shouldn't be putting any medical information on your resume. It's unnecessary. Donald Trump is fully vaccinated. Probably because he's not vaccinated. He made the vaccination a political issue when it shouldn't have been in the first place. I get where you're coming from. But did you also include that you get your flu shot every year? I believe you that you didn't include it to be political. But we are fresh out of a pandemic where people wore their compliance like a political badge of honor. I would remove it, as it's really not necessary anymore. But it also sounds like it wouldn't have mattered anyway. It's such a small thing to nitpick. I wouldn't list any medical information on my resume. At first blush, it doesn't feel especially political. But on the other hand, why list that vaccination specifically? And not, say, your other vaccinations? You wouldn't want to get the flu or mumps or diphtheria in the office either. To people that can get vaccinated, it's common sense, not political. Resume needs prior jobs, education, and a few references. That's it. No need to mention vaccinations or hobbies or clubs you belong to. Keep it bare bones. I would take that off of your resume and leave that information for all discussions with the HR team once you have received an offer. If they have a requirement for it, they will ask about it during the hiring process once they have sent you an offer. The interview isn't just for the hiring manager. It's also your opportunity to learn if you want to work there. It sounds like it was productive, in that you learned you don't want to work for that guy. I wouldn't have it on a resume. I would have retorted, you shouldn't announce your political beliefs during job interviews with potential new hires. It's unprofessional. I just put it there so I could weed out the psychopathic anti-vax nut jobs. This is not political, but you should not have mentioned it on your resume, and also I think it is something which depends on the country. Because from where I am, we need to be vaccinated to get into the colleges, so if you want to do anything in your life, you will have to get the vaccination, and I have done that, and it is not because of my political beliefs, it is because I wanted to be in college. Dude, you didn't want to work there to begin with. Dodged a bullet, best keep it on to avoid nutty bosses. Why would you put that on your resume? It is not part of the interview process. If the company wants you to be vaxxed, they will ask to see your card after you are hired. Extraneous info on a resume can be seen as a red flag. It's not political, but unless it is a requirement, like in a medical field, your vaccination statuses isn't relevant, and honestly shouldn't matter in the end. For resumes, stick to name, reason you want to work there, education without years, employment history, civic participation clubs, etc., and references upon request. Keep it simple. Don't do any fancy fonts or layouts. Times New or Arial, bullet points, and call it a day. Honestly, if you didn't get hired there, you probably lucked out. That's hardly political lol, but also irrelevant to a resume. It's not political and not relevant to the job. Leave it off. And it's good you didn't get this job because that guy is a douche. Maybe leave it in as a filter so you don't end up working for an asshole. An anti-vax employer is almost certainly a pro-working sick employer. Although I don't feel that was a political statement by you, it is totally unnecessary to put on a job resume. If it's a big corporate retailer, let their HR department know. They might be interested. Also, why not name and shame? I wouldn't want to work at this place or give them my business. Definitely not a political view. The person was obviously expressing their view though. That said, a resume should be short and provide exactly the information needed to demonstrate knowledge or qualifications. Allow the interviewer to ask those questions. If they, the specific person hiring, feel it important to know more, they will ask. I'm not sure the interviewer is qualified to provide sound advice on interviewing if they openly stated that to you. Find a better organization to work. Management like that obviously doesn't have anything to offer. It has become politicized, unfortunately, but seems like something that isn't part of your work skills, so isn't appropriate for a resume either way. It is something to put on the second round questions if they ask. It's medical, not political. Either way doesn't belong on a resume.